this weekend and for tonight, we have somebody that we've been praying about, and since the beginning of the year, the teaching team and the formation team have been asking the Lord if there's some people we should be adding to the teaching team. And so we have actually added 3 new members to the teaching team, and you're going to get to hear one of them this evening. Ashley Loaiza, who, don't come up yet, Ashley Loaiza, who actually I got to know back around, we were trying to figure it out, somewhere around 2008, 2009. She started going to Jubilee Fellowship, which was the church that this was a campus of at the time, and she got involved in the youth ministry there. And somewhere around 2009, 2010, she actually became the youth pastor for Pastor DJ, who's with us as well as part of the formation team. And my kids were in there. DJ and Cammy's kids were in there. The Ham's kids were in there. Several of the families that go to this church were in that youth group. In 2014, she transitioned, though, because she had missions on her heart, and so she went to Costa Rica, and she did 5 years there, starting Destiny's Project, which you have heard because Ashley gave a Family 5. And the reason I brought the Family 5 up a little bit earlier is because I had several people come up to me when you got done doing that. I don't even know if you know this, but they came up and said, Ashley should be on your teaching team. And so in 2019, she came back to the States, and she started working at Valor, and she's been at Valor ever since. She taught Spanish. She's been a participant of establishing student leadership type things, and now she's a dean of, what part? Dean of what? Of what? Dean of students. She's now the dean of students at Valor. So I think you're in for a great message, and so would you give a warm, shine welcome to Ashley?
Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, all right, perfect. Okay, awesome, thank you. It's an honor to be here with you guys tonight and to be speaking with you guys. I'm excited to speak about Psalm 139, but kind of based on everything that Dan was just saying, you know, there's this kind of a common denominator throughout my story and my life, right? And so I wanted to share just a couple minutes about that, but basically, when I was about 14 years old, I had a mentor. Her name was Becky, and down in my youth group at Grace Chapel, right off I-25 down there. And she said, I want you to invest in somebody else. And I was like, what does that even mean? And so at 14, I asked this girl, Natalie was her name, and I said, hey, do you want to go for coffee with me? Neither of us drank coffee. I don't know why I asked that. But we went and we sat and we talked and we read a verse of the Bible, and it was like, oh, okay, like I actually have something in me that she needed. And it was such a cool experience that throughout the entirety of my life, if you heard, you know, Dan say this, but I was a youth pastor, so teenagers, and then moved to Costa Rica and was going to work in different demographics, but started working with the teenagers at my church, and then ended up opening a safe house for teenagers, and then employed a bunch of teenagers as I left with Destiny Project, and then I'm back at Valor, which is, again, if you haven't caught the theme, teenagers, I can't get away from them. I'm not a huge animal fan, which is a red flag for a lot of people, but I'm a huge fan of teenagers, which I feel like makes up for it. But I think that what makes me so keen on teenagers is this concept that they're always just trying to figure out who they are, right? And so I'm going to talk about Psalm 139 tonight, and I think basically the theme of Psalm 139 is identity. Who are we? And David wrote the psalm, and he talks about this, but I think I love this psalm so much because it doesn't challenge us to just look at ourselves and figure out our personality and our Enneagram type and all these things that the world tells us to do, right? It challenges us to look at who we are from this perspective of who God is. Who I am is really a reflection of who God is. In Genesis 1:27, God creates mankind, and he says, I want to create mankind in my image, imago Dei. And so our purpose really on earth is to reflect this image of God. So when we ask this question of what is my purpose or what is my identity, we have to go back to the character of God? And if you can't or don't or won't, then do you really understand who you are? Psalm 139, the first verse and the last verse sums this up super well. In the first verse, David's sitting to write down, and he goes, "Oh, you've searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know me. You know everything about me." And then he goes into all of the things in Psalm, but by the end of it, it's almost like he's realized how much God knows him. And he's realized so many things about himself just by reflecting on who God is and how he's interacted with him. And so in the end, the last two verses, he says, it's almost like he's more sure about it at the beginning than at the end. Have you ever had something like that? Like the more you know, the less you know type of thing, right? Like, search me, God. And he's begging at the end, search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. So, Father God, I come before you tonight, and I just lift this message up to you, Lord. Every one of us has taken on and adopted identities that are not truly who you want us to be. And every single one of us has rejected identities that are a part of what you designed for us. Lord, you are the artist, you are the author, you're the masterpiece maker. And I pray, Lord, that you would just align our hearts and our understandings of ourselves with what you see in us tonight. So we love you, we bless you. Father, I just pray that any word that comes out of my mouth that is from you, that it would come out. And if it's not from you, Lord, that we would just forget it, or I just wouldn't say it. And I just pray that you would be in charge of every moment of this. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So Janelle on our teaching team said that whenever she studies the passage with the youth, she said she asked 3 questions. What does this say about God? What does this say about me? And what do I do with it? Which is essentially what we're going to do with Psalm 139 tonight. But I wanted to ask a question very early on, so get ready to answer a question, if that's okay. What or who defines your identity? So they're going to pass around the mics, and I want you to think about this, but this is what I'm trying to get at, is if you think about this, if you kind of even fill in the blank, I am, fill in the blank. I am stubborn. Why do I know that I'm stubborn? Who told me that? Where did that come from? What is that? Why is that a part of my personality? I am this, I am that. I mean, where do you get your identity from? Who's spoken into that? All right, awesome, thank you.
I think a lot of times we get our identity from what we do. And that's like the first thing that people will say, like, I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, I do this. And I've caught myself doing that many times, so I'll share that.
Yep. Absolutely, titles, what do we do? Anybody else? Okay, yeah, right here.
My name's Danielle, and being a mom is a big part of my identity. Having kids and taking care of them, I'd say.
Yep, absolutely. And then also, like, you know, the way that you take care of them is there's definitely different things that are attached to that, right? Like some people think that it's good that you do this, or it's not good that you do this. There's a lot of identity that gets wrapped up in being a mom. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm Wes. I know the right answer is supposed to be that I get my identity from the Lord, but the reality is that the identity that I reside in is a derivative of my parents or the upbringing and what was spoken over me as a child and even as a young man. And so that's where I've kind of rested in my identity. Wrongly so, but that's the reality.
Yeah, but a lot of times we don't even think about this, right? Like, there's so much of our identity it has to come from, you know, who raised us. Yeah, where we came from. Absolutely.
I'll pile on and be a Debbie Downer. I would say, unfortunately, some of my identity in the past has come from my mistakes just like things I've done that I latch onto those things. Like I'm a fill in the blank. So.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, that's huge. Things that have happened to us, things that we've chosen to do, mistakes, circumstances, experiences. Yes.
Hi, I'm Scott, and I've found that if I'm paying attention to the wrong things, I realize the world has pretty strong opinions on who it expects me to be based on where I live and how I grew up. And so if we're not careful, we can get defined pretty rigidly by the world, which is wrong.
Yeah. Yes. And I ask this question too because I think like all of us just kind of get us all on the same playing field too, right? We all go through these things, and I'm good with teenagers in this conversation, but honestly, like this is just something teenagers talk about all the time. It's just not something we talk about as adults as much, but it's still something we all wrestle with. There's all sorts of things trying to grab at our identity. Yeah, Neil.
I'm the youngest of 12 children, and my stepfather once told me that I could never serve in the church because I wanted to be a priest. He was a very religious man, and he said that I couldn't because I was conceived out of wedlock, and I was a bastard child. And so for a large portion of my teenage years, and even into my adulthood, I carried that I was an illegitimate child. And it wasn't until I learned, it was familiarized, somebody brought to my attention that God formed me in my mother's womb. It didn't matter what this man said I was. It was what Scripture was said I was. And so that was a huge turning point in my life.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. So many of us have had this experience where somebody has spoken something over us and it just sticks. It's like something we adopt, like, oh, this is just a part of me, right? And it is very hard to get rid of that. It has to be this intentional act to do that. So I think that every single one of us, I think a lot of you guys kind of pointed to this, but I think every single one of us has kind of different lenses by which people see us, right? And so I'm a mom too. My 4-year-old, a lot of times I'm mom. Most recently, I'm Ashley. If he keeps on saying my mom, and I don't answer, he's like Ashley, and he knows how mad that makes me. Or bro, that's been a recent one too. Like, no, that's not. Or sometimes he sees me as this adventure buddy. We do a lot of outdoors fun things together. He caught his first fish today, actually, with my dad and I. And then sometimes he sees me as like the disciplinarian, right? And so sometimes I can take on some of these things, like I'm mean because he's mad at me, or I'm a bad mom because he's mad at me. But I could take on also like I am home base and I'm so great because he sees me as so great, right? But what is that really true? Or we look at David's life more specifically. David's life is very interesting. If you have ever read anything about David, there's so much about David. A lot of his story begins in like 1 Samuel. And actually Samuel is this prophet, and he comes and he's like, hey, Jesse, I've heard that God wants to anoint one of your sons. And so Jesse's like, okay, cool. Jesse brings all of his sons except for David. Do you guys know this story? He's like, David's just this weak shepherd kid. He can be out there. And he brings all the rest of his sons. And so Samuel's praying over each one of the sons, and God's like, nope. It's like 7 other sons. And he's like, do you have any other sons? Because I really think God said that your son. And he goes, well, yeah, I have one more. And he goes, well, bring him. Yep, it's this one. So that probably didn't feel great as David. Like, I wasn't even included in the list of sons for my father in this moment. But then he's the one who's anointed king, right? And then right after that, he becomes the armor bearer for Saul. And he kind of becomes the armor bearer for Saul because he's a really good musician. So he's seen as this great musician, right? And then he's an armor bearer, and he's like, who's this guy, Goliath? And we all know this story. They're like, no, you're like kind of too puny and punky, and you can't fight him because you're tiny. And then he's like, no, I'm going to go fight him. And they're like, oh, you need all this armor. And he's like, no. He's just seen as this, like, nobody. And then he goes, no, just let me do my thing. And Saul's last words to him, the king's last words to him is like, God be with you. Like, hopefully this goes well for you. And he takes a little stone and he throws it at Goliath. And as we know, Goliath falls and he becomes this great warrior suddenly, right? So then he's seen as this great warrior. So he could take on any one of these identities, right? To his wife at one point, he gets married to Saul's daughter. And then to his wife at one point, he's like out there, he's like praising all this other stuff. She's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I will be so undignified to glorify God. And she's like, you are an embarrassment. That can't feel good as a man, right? His friend Jonathan, who's Saul's son, he's closer than a brother. Jonathan dies for him because he's so close with him. He could take on that identity. He could take on the identity of David, the king who looks down at the bathhouse, finds the pretty woman, Bathsheba, as we know this story, and he says, he calls for her, sleeps with her, gets her pregnant, then kills her husband so that it just kind of all looks fine, right? But he gets called out on it as a murderer and a liar and an adulterer. And there's truth to every single one of those stories and every single one of those lenses of who David is. And all of us have that, right? There's truth to the lens that I'm like home base and I'm safe to my son. There's truth to that. And also, there's truth to the fact that I'm the mean disciplinarian. There's also, he told me I wasn't invited to his birthday party once, too. Like, there's truth to some of these things, but we have to kind of decide, like, what am I gonna do with that, right? So David is writing this, and my favorite identity of David's is the one that God speaks over him, and he says he's a man after my own heart. Despite all the things, because of all the things, he's a man after my own heart. So what we're going to look at tonight in Psalm 139 is not maybe traditionally how we look at a Bible passage like this, but what I love about Psalm 139 is that it says more about God than it does about us. And so many times we look at life and we say, well, I am this, so God must be. Rather than saying, God is this, so I must be. Right? So we're going to look at it in that light. Verses 1 through 6. You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. And then it kind of breaks down, what does that mean? You know when I sit. You know when I kind of fall back and just give up. But you know when I rise. You know when I'm going to rise and fight for something. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You know everything I'm thinking. You discern my going out and my lying down. You're familiar with all my ways. You know my routines, but you know how I change them up sometimes. You know what I'm thinking. You know what I'm feeling. You know my tendencies. You know what I'm tempted by. You know all of the things. Before a word is on my tongue, Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before. That's one of those verses that I can never get burned out of my mind because a hem is like the closest thing next to you, right? You hem me in. I feel like it's like a hem all the way around, like my whole body and my mind and my heart and everything. He's right there. Behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. And I love that too, because it's, what knowledge is he talking about? Knowledge about him. He's like, I don't even know myself that well. I actually don't even have the right or the ability to know myself the way that you know me, right? So I would say from this passage, from 1 through 6, what I can see about God is that he is omniscient. God is omniscient. So the word omniscient is sort of a fancy word for saying God knows everything. He knows everything. Hebrews 4:13 says, nothing in all creation is hidden from God. That's a really scary verse. Nothing you've thought, nothing you've felt, nothing you've done, none of your intentions, none of your motivations is hidden from God. Everything is naked and exposed before his eyes, and he is the one to whom we are accountable. That's kind of a terrifying verse. And also, it's a comforting verse. Because we know that God loves you more than anything. So if God is omniscient, then I am known. You are known. You are known. I want you guys to turn to the person next to you or the person that you came from or a person that's around you and say, you're known. You're known. And then I want you to say that to yourself. I'm known. I'm seen. I'm known. For some of us, that's a little bit terrifying, that verse, but for most of us, I would say this is something that this is what we need. This is what we want. Lauren on our teaching team said, God doesn't maintain any illusions about you, even the illusions that you maintain about yourself. What a great prayer. Let me see me the way that you do in truth, the powerful and the painful. So what does it mean to be known, to be seen, to be accounted for, to be accountable to someone? Timothy Keller says, I love this quote, he says, to be loved but not known is comforting but superficial. To be known and not loved is our greatest fear, but to be fully known and truly loved. Just sit in that for a second. I'm fully known and I am truly loved exactly how I am. To be fully known and truly loved is a lot like being loved by God. It's what we need more than anything. It liberates us from pretense, it humbles us, and it strengthens us for any difficulty that life can throw at us. And Jesus asks us to do this, but he also knows what it feels like, right? He wants us to be known, but he also decided to be known. God is actually, the whole story of God is, I want to be known by you. So God knows everything about you, and he wants you to feel the same. He wants you to be known. Second, verses 7 through 12, where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? It's almost like David's like, oh my gosh, I'm known. I'm known. Everything's exposed. Oh no. Where can I go? I need to get away. I don't know. Could I go anywhere? I'm kind of just thinking about this now. Could I go anywhere that you are not? Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you're there. If I make my bed in the depths, you're there. That means when I have the title and when I'm on stage and when I get to say all these great things and look really wonderful, you're there. And when I am in the depths of my sin, in the worst place, in the darkest corner of the world, in my rock bottom, you're right there too. Breathe in for a second. I did this a few times this week. I just breathed in God. He's there. Like he's there every single place. Even there, your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me and light will become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you. Samuel, when he builds the temple, he says, why even the highest heavens cannot contain you, God? How much less this temple that I've built. In Matthew 1, we know that it says, the virgin will conceive a child and he will be called Emmanuel, which means God is with us. He's with us. He's with. He's never far from us. Because I think that sometimes what we do is it's sort of like a ladder. Like we're like, okay, I did this and I'm taking sort of a step up towards God. I went to church today. I sang. It's so great. And I did this. And I'm taking steps closer to God. And then, ooh, I just had that thought. I just drank a little bit too much. I'm taking steps away from God. And it's not it's not like that. It's not transactional like that with God. He's just always there and always fully loving and always fully knows you and always pursues you. Farther I run, the farther he runs with me, right? And that is who he is. He's with us. So if God is omnipresent, then I am not alone. I am not alone. I want you just to say that. I am not alone. I am known. I'm not alone. You're seen. You're known. He's with you. And I want to just mention here, C.S. Lewis said this great quote. I really love this quote. There's no neutral ground in the universe. Every square inch, every split second is claimed by God and then counterclaimed by Satan. And I think sometimes when you have the top of identity, maybe you think you heard Dan talk about all my titles, and Jennifer brought it up really great, like these things that I've done and all these places I've been and the way that people can see me. But I have had some very dark moments of life. And if I think of the lenses that people see me in, sometimes people see me as the missionary that went to Costa Rica, or the one that had the youth ministry, or the one that, can pray and really, I truly believe in healing for people, or prophesy over things. And those are really wonderful places to step in. It was really fun shoes to walk in. But to some of my friends, I'm the divorced one. There's nothing else, just that's it. Or I'm the single mom. Or I'm the one that got turned down for the job. I don't really know why. And I want to pause here for a second, because I know that not every moment feels like I'm known, yay. I'm seen, yay. I'm not alone, yay. A lot of moments are spent, and I can't tell you how many moments that I've spent myself, even in the last couple of years, just at the foot of my bed in weeping tears, because I don't really know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I have the title, I have the things that I need for the world to see me as good. I'm good, right? But when you get down to the depths of like that, your gut, who am I? That question that we all struggle with deep inside of us. The only place that I can go to know the truth of who I am is to know the truth of who He is. I have a good friend whose son has gone through so many difficult treatments. He's had brain cancer. He has just different conditions, and he has all sorts of things that he's had to do his whole life, and he's only 7 years old. And so many times we will be praying for him, and there will be all sorts of just, okay, he's going to be okay, and then something else will come up. And this just seems to happen over and over and over again. And it reminded me of this moment in the Bible where Jesus goes up to this blind man, and these Pharisees are like, okay, yep, he's blind. You see him? He's blind. It's written all over him. His sin is just like exposed, and they're like, who sinned that this man was born blind? Was it his parents, or was it him? And Jesus is like, just remember his response. He says, this man was born blind so that the glory of God could be displayed in him right now. And I want us to remember that, because I don't always know why I've walked through the things that I've walked through, or why I walk through them, or why I sometimes question these things, or why life isn't just easy and we don't just have it the way that we feel like we're supposed to have it. But I do know that it is my choice every day to choose to allow my life and my story to reflect the glory of God. That's a choice. So God is omniscient and I am known. God is omnipresent, so I am not alone. And on that note, 3, God is the author. 13 through 18, for you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. This is maybe one of the most difficult verses in the Bible as well. Every day, all the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. How precious to me are your thoughts, God. How vast the sum of them. Were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. And when I'm awake, I'm still with you. You're still omnipresent. I'm still here. You're still with me. God is the author. And when God's the author of something, he's like the great creator of it, right? So I want to say to you, this is not one of my points, but you are a masterpiece. The God that we serve is the God from beginning of time to the end of time, right? So he's there before all of it. He created light and darkness and people and all the things, right? And so when he created you, he did so with intentionality. We know how many billions of chances it would take to have one human be alive. So if you are on this earth, you are on this earth with purpose. You're on this earth with purpose. So if he wants you to be on this earth and he wants you to be alive, he has purpose for you. Your story is precise and intentional. Isaiah 55 says, the rain and snow come down from the heavens and stay on the ground to water the earth. This is God speaking through the prophet Isaiah. They cause the grain to grow, producing seed for the farmer and bread for the hungry. It is the same with my word. I send it out and it always produces fruit. It will accomplish all that I want it to, and it will prosper wherever I send it. He's not saying like, yeah, I mean, like I just took a chance and you're on the earth. There you go. Hopefully it goes well for you. No, I ordained you to be on this earth, and if I ordained this, it was my word said this, I want you to be here. You will prosper. You will produce fruit. I only make good things. He's only a perfect creator. If he's the author, the story of my life is precise and intentional. I don't always understand. If you've ever seen like a Bob Ross, show, you can like watch him and maybe you see him make like a big black streak across and you're like, ooh, whoops, he messed it up, right? And then you're like, oh, and then he takes it and oh my gosh, how he incorporates the colors. But maybe there's some artists in here. I'm not one of you at all. But I can say you don't understand the full picture until it's done. So many times we watch in the middle of it and you're like, ooh, they messed it up, when you just don't see the full vision that the artist sees. And I want you to remember that in your life, because some things happen and they make no sense. And there's nothing about the character of God that seems to fit with this thing that's happening in my life. But if God is the author, then my story is precise and intentional. It's like David here is going, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I am knit together in a way that I could not even possibly understand. He said it's too high, too lofty for me to understand. I could not possibly understand what you understand. Then it says you created my inmost being. It doesn't say you created my body. It says you created my inmost being. You created my thoughts. You created the things that I love. You created the things that I'm going to fight for. You created those things inside of me before I was even born. You knew. God lives outside of time and space, and I'll never quite fully conceptualize that, but we don't. So he can look at you today and say, you are the masterpiece that I created. But there's still so much more to be done. So I think identity is a hard topic for this world today, and the concept of truth is very, very difficult, right? We look at truth and it's almost like relative, right? So I heard about relative truth. Like it could be true for you, but it's not true for me. And I think that kind of the way to differentiate those things are truth. Really, the word truth in and of itself, there has to be something that's true. It cannot be changed. It's just truth. Nothing can make it anything other than truth. It is just truth, right? But I think the way that our society has developed that concept a little bit is to say, but how do you identify? How many of us just cringed because you're like, oh, we're going to go to that conversation. I identify as. Those words have changed us, right? I can be American and also move to Costa Rica and get my citizenship there and give up my citizenship here, and now I'm suddenly Costa Rican, but my parents are still American. I still was born in this country. There's a truth there that does not change, even when I choose to identify in a different way. Okay, so I think it's a hard concept for us to consider and weigh. What is truth? What is identity? And I would say that your identity is what you choose. It's what you choose to believe. It's based on what you choose to be true about you. And so if you believe, as I think God begs us to say, like, you are allowing your spouse to define you. You're allowing the teacher of your child to define you. You're allowing the people who are at the courthouse that gave you your divorce certificate, or your friend that doesn't really know you very well, or this person or that person, or Neil, this guy that just said this thing to him. Oh my goodness. I want to define you. I've given you so much. And just because of who I am good and I'm loving and I love you and I am faithful. And that makes you so much more than you will ever make yourself. So identify with me. If he's true for you, then your identity is that you're known fully and you're loved fully. And that the story of your life is precise and intentional. And then how you respond to God, knowing these things, reflects the posture of your heart. So the last thing he says, David goes into this moment where he's like, oh, everybody's so evil and wicked. And he says, if only you, God, would slay the wicked. Away from me, you who are bloodthirsty. They speak of you with evil intent. Your adversaries misuse your name. Do I not hate those who hate you, Lord, and abhor those who are in rebellion against you? I have nothing but hatred for them. I count them as my enemies. And we're sitting in teaching team, and we got to this moment, and we were like, this kind of just doesn't feel like it fits for a second, right? But it's this response of David, like, oh my gosh, I hate everything that's not you, because I want everything that is me to be everything that is you, and I hate everything that's not you. And then David sort of like, it's like this pause of a moment. He goes, I'm wicked, because I've taken on all these identities that the world's given me. These people that I want to count as your enemies, they're me. They're me. He wants to hate what God hates, and also he realizes that he embodies all of these identities that God hates. And so, the last couple of verses. First verse, you've searched me, God, you know me. Last two verses, again, I just see David on his knees. Like, I have nothing to offer. Search me, God, and know my heart. That word know, yada, in the Hebrew means an intimate knowing. I want you to know my heart. I want you to test me. I want you to know my anxious thoughts. I want you to see, or other versions say, point out to me if there's any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. When we're talking about this concept of the offensive way, Dan said this in teaching team. He said, I think what he's saying there is your first, Genesis 1:27, your first hope for me was that I would carry your image. And so this prayer is much more of a prayer of what in me is offensive to your image. I've never seen this statue of David. I don't know if anybody has, chiseled by Michelangelo in Florence, Italy, but that's on my bucket list now. Michelangelo is renowned for being one of the greatest artists of all time. As we know, his marble sculpture, David, is a testament to his skill and dedication. It took him nearly 3 years to complete. He went to go pick out a stone, and he ended up choosing a stone that all the other artists had rejected. He saw sort of this hidden potential behind this big slab of marble. And so he worked daily into transforming it into what he saw as something beautiful. But what's even more remarkable than that is that he didn't create David from scratch. It's not like he took pieces of marble and put him together. He actually took this large block of marble and chipped away just a little bit at a time. He was later asked about the difficulties that he must have encountered in sculpting his masterpiece of David. And he replied with sort of this unassuming description of his creative process. He just said, "All I did was chip away everything that wasn't David." God is the artist here, and he wants to chip away and undo all of these things that do not reflect his image. He's not trying to chip away and undo all these things that don't reflect you or his masterpiece of you. He's actually just trying to chip away everything that's not him. This process of sanctification is this process of taking those things in life that happen and choosing to reflect the glory of God and choosing to allow God to chip away the things that are not him. He wants to chisel away everything that's not him. So, 2 Corinthians 3:18, just end with this. And we who with unveiled faces all reflect the Lord's glory are being transformed into his likeness with ever increasing glory. I don't think that's, yeah. With ever increasing glory, which comes from the Lord who is the Spirit. So I just wanted to sort of end this with just praying for everyone, but I want you to just sort of hold your hands out and close your eyes. And I want to just invite the Lord to be with us in this moment, and I want you to just offer up as if you're carrying this weight of your own identity that you've chosen to adopt. We're going to kind of take the elements of what that is, and I just want you to release them to God. For me, that might be I've chosen to take on this identity as I'm divorced. I'm the single mom. I'm the failure in certain things. I can't get the job. I'm not enough. And I want you to just offer those things to God and let him lovingly just take them from you. So just take a minute to do that. And then I want you to hold your hands out again, and I want you to ask God this simple prayer that David prays at the end. Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. I want you to ask God, are you willing to subject yourself to that with God? Ask him to test you. Father, I pray over everyone in this room, Lord, that you look at every person in this room and you say, you are a masterpiece. Thank you for that, God. Thank you that we're not the artist and we're not the sculptor and we're not the creator. God, thank you that you are. Father, I just pray that we can let go of those pieces of ourselves that have chosen to allow other people to define us, that have chosen to allow circumstances to define us, that have chosen to allow even our mistakes and our failures to define us when you have something so much bigger for us. Father, I pray that we could release any identity that is not from you, that you would chip that away, and that you would speak life into each one of us.